Welcome to Box Next, our video series where we host executives and industry leaders to discuss what's trending in the market. Today, we're diving into how to protect privacy in an AI-driven world. I'm Laryssa, Polika, Staff Product Marketing Manager here at Box, and I'm thrilled to welcome Leah Perry, Box's Chief Privacy Officer and Head of Global Public Policy. Leah, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do here at Box?
Sure. Good to be with you, Laryssa. So I possess about 20 years of experience practicing law in both the public and private sector, from working in Congress to working for Box here and various other companies. Having said that, I especially have noted experience leading privacy, information security law programs, as well as regulatory, international trade, and finally, public policy. In my role here at Box, as Global Head of Public Policy, I'm charged with creating and implementing the strategy around how we respond to potential legislation, regulatory changes that impact Box, our customers, and our service providers. In my role as Chief Privacy Officer, I also lead the global function in terms of privacy legal and privacy compliance functions. That means that I take a hard look at how our products are designed and incorporate privacy, our policies, our relationships with our third-party service providers to make sure that we are putting privacy first. Because here at Box, privacy is at the foundation of what we do.
That's amazing. So I know we're going to go into depth about some hard-hitting questions around AI. I have one to sort of kick us off. What is the current state of data privacy amidst AI's new inflection point?
Yeah, it's a really interesting inflection point that we're at. You know, AI has the ability to drive efficiency and effectiveness across industries. Even in a recent report by McKinsey, it talks about that by 2030, we're going to be saving here in the United States about 30% of work hours will be automated by generative AI. That's huge. But with that, AI carries with it serious risk and consideration. So whether or not you're talking about how the data is trained, what type of data is going into AI, sufficiency of training and making sure the accuracy of those outputs, as well as the inputs of that information. And so there's real risk, and even more so, those risks are associated with high-risk use cases. How are you governing those use cases, the intended purpose in which you are incorporating AI technology into your product offering, or ultimately in terms of end users? Now, having said that, there has been such fluctuation in the marketplace around AI that federal governments, whether or not here in the United States or foreign governments, have taken notice. Right now, we have over 800 plus pieces of AI-related privacy regulations that are taking shape or already have taken shape. Just last month, in October of 2023, President Biden issued an executive order, another one on AI, specific to federal government usage. What are the key privacy considerations that should be made, including calling on Congress to take action to pass comprehensive data privacy regulation. And so we're at a place where it's clear that governments want every organization to focus on privacy and let AI not only be something that's beneficial, but is also privacy being at the very foundation in terms of driving that technology forward.
That's amazing. I know in the United States, we have one set of regulations. I can only imagine what it must be like in places like Europe or Canada or some of the other countries that are very highly regulated when it comes to privacy. So when we think about how organizations can prioritize data privacy, we've talked about government. How can they do that as we move forward with this new technology?
I think there's a number of considerations, but first it's to make sure you're placing privacy first. And that means incorporating privacy and AI in your privacy by design program. And when I say privacy by design, I'm speaking to developing products, et cetera, and incorporating privacy within it. And so as you're thinking about AI, there's basically 6 facets that need to be under consideration. The first thing is transparency. So transparency and consent of the individual end user for use of AI technology. So disclosing when AI is actually being used and ensuring that you have proper consent in place by the individual user. The second thing is training on user data. As far as training on user data, if you decide to allow the AI service provider to train on your data, do you have proper consent by the individual end user to that training? And then also for the AI service provider directly, is there proper modeling and training and proper data and related outputs that are occurring with accuracy? The other thing that also needs to be considered is ensuring that you're performing a data protection impact assessment, known as a DPIA. You see this throughout privacy regulations or data protection regulations when you're talking about highly sensitive data or automated decision making, etc. And so with generative AI technology, the DPIA must be performed to evaluate risk and ensure that you're properly mitigating those risks. The other thing is retention of that data, and that kind of goes along with training. So once the training occurs, is the AI service provider that you're choosing to integrate with, is it retaining that information? Is the ability to delete it, if at all? And then as far as the retention, how long will those retention periods be? Is there agreed upon deletion schedule? And what marries into that is then the exercise of data subject rights. Exercising data subject rights is clearly stated, whether or not you're talking about California, Virginia, Connecticut, Colorado, Utah, that all provide those to individual data subjects. You also find it in Canada, EU, UK, Japan, etc. And so the importance of being able to comply with a data subject right, and that means exercising a right to deletion, access, retrification, exercising the right to portability. All of those things need to be factored in. And then lastly is ethical usage. So how is the data actually being used? Is it creating any type of bias, discriminatory outcome as a result of the use of generative AI technology? And I want to flag that when these 6 facets are being considered and followed by organizations, whether or not it's the public, private sector, nonprofit organizations, what the benefit that will happen is real. And that means there's clear benefits to individuals in terms of having control over their information and complying with privacy regulations and even the direction that some of them are going. And then there's also benefits from an organization perspective where you're building that needed trust with your customer in terms of, frankly, making sure that you have a meaningful AI governance program that includes that privacy by design key element. And then lastly, it's the clear benefits to society. By having these 6 key facets in place, you're going to make sure that you're also benefiting society, not impacting things from a bias or discriminatory impact type of lens.
I love the privacy by design and the framework that you've articulated. I think that as companies and enterprises start to create this, there are probably specific privacy-related ethical concerns related to AI that they should focus on. Can you talk a little bit about those and how they could address them effectively?
Yeah, I think one of the key things to keep in mind is that while AI regulations are developing, there are still privacy regulations that are at play, applicable, and then even further, there are certain regulations such as the EEOC, the Federal Trade Commission in the US, where those regulations also apply in terms of consumer protection, protection against discrimination, etc. Well, use of AI, when frankly done wrong, has the potential to offer with it huge risk. And some of those risk areas are, for instance, use of facial recognition, as well as biometric data. And what that means in terms of the potential outcomes and related bias or discrimination that could happen. And when that does happen, it has real world impact on someone's fundamental rights. So whether or not being denied a loan application without proper human oversight, or for instance, having certain health benefits denied, accepted, or a diagnosis without proper human oversight can be a real meaningful thing that can happen to someone, and AI has that risk associated with it. And so clearly there's a few things that need to take place. And it's something that I referenced in answering your previous question. And that is, of course, making sure that there's proper modeling training, but also there's proper human oversight of that technology. You cannot just solely rely on it for decision making, for automated decision making. And so to have that human oversight is really mission critical, as well as providing that transparency when it is in use. There's key laws, as I noted before, around facial recognition and biometric data. For instance, in Illinois, there's biometric data regulations. There's certain facial recognition requirements around candidates being interviewed, et cetera, in the state of Maryland. So it's this huge range. So those high-risk use cases are something that any organization needs to seriously hone in on.
Wonderful. So as we sort of bring our conversation to a conclusion, can you just talk a little bit about the future of data privacy in AI? You've given us a lot of amazing concrete examples, a lot of things to consider, but I'm sure we've got an eye on the present and an eye on the future. So I'll leave it to you to take us out into what might be coming.
Yeah, I would certainly say that we are living in a dynamic time in the privacy world. Things are going to continue to shape and fluctuate, as I noted before. Just at the very end of October of this year, U.S. President Biden issued his executive order, and then followed by that was the Office of Management and Budget, their draft requirements as well. And so I would say that organizations are going to have to continue to pay attention to this space. Every industry is quickly adopting AI, and what that means is that they have to have a meaningful privacy, legal, and security function that are paying attention to the changing regulations, because they will surely need to course correct at some point. The other thing is making sure that they're putting privacy first. Frankly speaking, if you put privacy first, you're going to land in a place of at least having the foundational aspects there, whether or not it's privacy by design, transparency, consent, ensuring that you can comply with data subject requests, making sure that you have proper internal and external policies in place around privacy and AI, and then also making sure that you have the right contractual provisions in place with the AI service provider if you are integrating with the AI service provider. So, and all of that really surfaces when you look at the National Institute of Standards and Technology's risk management framework. And as a matter of fact, in U.S. President Biden's executive order, that's one of the things that he's also looking for expansion upon, is not only compliance with the risk management framework, but also additional guidance for AI developers and others. So I would certainly say pay attention to the space. Pay attention to how you intend to use AI technology, and particularly pay attention if you are interested in using it for what I flagged before, such as the high-risk use cases, because that's the area that many governments are most concerned about in terms of being in conflict, if you will, or difficult to balance one's privacy rights or fundamental rights and freedoms, as they would name it in the EU.
Leah, thank you so much for joining us here today. I've learned so much, and I really appreciate it. And I can only say that Box and our customers are super lucky to have you on our side, looking and implementing and helping us work through that framework. So that wraps up another insightful session of our Box Next video series. Stay tuned for more thought-provoking topics and discussions about AI and other emerging topics. Until next time, keep on looking at what's next.